Hello everyone, my name is Britannia Simpson and I will be presenting on the topic Justify that metaphysics is the foundation of science. Please sit back and enjoy my presentation. I must say that at first, when I got this topic, I was really not enthused. Why? You might ask. Well, while doing my initial research for another philosophy course, which is the philosophy of science, I found that there is an ongoing debate about the contributions and importance of philosophy and metaphysics to science.
Metaphysics, it is the art of making no sense in a language especially designed for that purpose.
So many physicists are bashing philosophers these days. So to give you a few examples, Stephen Hawking in his last book said that philosophy is dead because it hasn't kept up with developments in physics. Lawrence Krauss and Neil deGrasse Tyson, other high-profile physicists, have made very cutting remarks about philosophy.
Fundamental truths, which is why I pursue metaphysics. But some scientists disagree. They reject all philosophy as largely trouble, worse than empty, a distraction, a hindrance, an annoyance. I visit the literate physicist and Nobel laureate, Steven Weinberg. What do you think of philosophy?
Well, I used to be very enthusiastic about studying philosophy, but science, particularly physics, for me, is so much more predictive and capable of having real success and real failure. In physics, you can often have the healthy experience of being found to be simply wrong about something, and I don't know how often philosophers have that healthy experience. So there's a crispness to physics which I find lacking in philosophy. On the other hand,
Okay, you get the point. Metaphysics, in extension philosophy, is not widely appreciated by the scientific community. This is mainly due to the fact that Aristotle, the founding father of metaphysics, had many concepts and ideas about the modern world that, well, now we know to be disproven, or let's just say, little less than scientifically correct. However, I should remark that the metaphysician E.J. Lowe points out that metaphysics goes deeper than any merely empirical science, even physics, because it provides the very framework within which such science are conceived and related to one another. Despite the controversy, in my quest to justify my topic, I actually found out, much to my surprise, that metaphysics truly is indeed the foundation of science. Instead of just focusing on arguments put forward by renowned metaphysicians to justify metaphysics as a precursor to science, I also tried to uncover if there was any historical relationship between metaphysics and the development of science. Let's explore. Both science and philosophy at the fundamental level have similar objectives. However, before there was science, there was metaphysics. And many of the questions that sparked the scientific revolution was first sparked by metaphysical inquiry. Firstly, what is metaphysics? As you have already heard, metaphysics is an investigation into the fundamental nature of reality. It asks questions such as, what is there or what exists? The question of what exists is a branch of metaphysics called ontology. Your ontology is your list of what exists. Like, do you believe in ghosts or God? Well, if yes, On your list of what exists, ghosts and God is featured. And if you don't believe in ghosts or God, then on your list of what exists, they won't feature. However, for example, lecturers would, the chair would feature on your list of what exists. One particular ontology that revolutionized and set the basis for modern science, particularly in the field of mathematics, is the Indian or Indus ontology of nothingness. Though it was not featured in Aristotle's ontology, as he was of the persuasion that the concept of nothingness could not exist in nature.
The Greek thought universe created by Aristotle, Pythagoras, and Ptolemy rested upon the basic understanding that there is no void. Because of the Greek influence on Western civilization, the idea of zero was rejected. The philosophy of Pythagoras and his followers was that all is number, and that ratios controlled the universe. But the ratio of 0 to anything, 0 divided by a number, is always 0. In the Greek sense, this would defy nature. 0 was dangerous to the brotherhood of Pythagoras, as it proved the golden ratio was in fact an irrational number. The entire cult was sworn to secrecy, and when Hippasus of Metapomptum declared he was going to let the secret out, the brotherhood drowned him by throwing him overboard from a ship. Oddly enough, Pythagoras' doctrine became the centerpiece of Western philosophy, that the world was governed by ratios.
Without zero, there'd be chaos with transport. You wouldn't be able to fill up your car. Speed limits would mean nothing. They measure how much higher you're going than 0 miles per hour, right? The prime meridian, that's 0 degrees longitude on the globe, won't be a thing, which means modern navigation goes with it. Without it, planes and ships will be rendered useless. GPS? Gone. How can it measure the distance between two places without a starting point? It wouldn't even get that far without satellites. Yep, they wouldn't work either since they use binary code. If people can't travel, then towns will become isolated. We'd probably even go back to horses and buggies and paper maps. Looks like we could use another cup half full example. Although, can't really measure the contents of that cup without zero.
So, you get the point. Without the ontology of nothing, which led to the development of counting nothing or zero, modern mathematics and in extension science wouldn't exist. Another feature of metaphysics is that it not only asks questions such as what exists, it also asks what is its nature. Once you postulate the existence of something, the next obvious question is to ask, what is it like? Let us see how this metaphysical approach assisted with the development of one of the major physical sciences, which is chemistry. The branch of chemistry is based on the chief intellectual concept of atoms and molecules, meaning without the concept of atoms, chemistry would fail to be as efficient as it is today. However, the atoms was not accepted by the scientific community until John Dalton.
What do an ancient Greek philosopher and a 19th century Quaker have in common with Nobel Prize-winning scientists? Although they are separated over 2,400 years of history, each of them contributed to answering the eternal question, what is stuff made of? It was around 440 BCE that Democritus first proposed that everything in the world was made up of tiny particles surrounded by empty space. And he even speculated that they vary in size and shape depending on the substance they compose. He called these particles atomos, Greek for indivisible. His ideas were opposed by the more popular philosophers of his day. Aristotle, for instance, disagreed completely, stating instead that matter was made of 4 elements: earth, wind, water, and fire, and most later scientists followed suit. Atoms would remain all but forgotten until 1808, when a Quaker teacher named John Dalton sought to challenge Aristotelian theory. Whereas Democritus's atomism had been purely theoretical, Dalton showed that common substances always broke down into the same elements in the same proportions. He concluded that the various compounds were combinations of atoms of different elements, each of a particular size and mass, that could neither be created nor destroyed. Though he received many honors for his work, as a Quaker, Dalton lived modestly until the end of his days. Atomic theory was now accepted by the scientific community, but the next major advancement would not come until nearly a century later.
A careful examination of Dalton's atomic theory with Democritus's atomic theory will show that Democritus paved the way for Dalton to develop his theory and the foundation of chemistry on a whole. Finally, another point of argument that justifies metaphysics as the foundation of science is the use of methodologies that were employed in the field of philosophy before science amalgamated into a pursuit of its own. Science chiefly utilizes the scientific method, which involves observation, experimentation, and logical forms of inferences in order to form and test hypotheses. This alone is adequate for the pursuit of science, as scientists often need to choose between competing explanation of the same observation, and the only way they can do this is by employing non-empirical factors in order for decision making, such as aesthetic consideration like simplicity and elegance. Scientists will have to utilize methodologies that have long been employed in philosophy and metaphysics.